Bixby is still here, but supposedly can be remapped now to activate another app. Thanks, Samsung. The buttons still come out and are actually purple inside this time. Purple might not be my favorite color, but it's consistent on all the buttons. Each of them have the same purple nibblings. No purple on the thin and expandable SD card tray though. Even with the removable buttons on the Galaxy S10, it's still IP68 water resistant. It's nice to have that extra protection against liquids. I'll get the buttons back in. Now, this might just be my imagination, but every time a new phone comes out, I feel like people seem to collectively lose their minds over the smallest improvements. When in reality, taking a step back shows that not a whole lot has changed in the last few years. Samsung did manage to flip the wireless charging around, so now it can give and receive wireless power. It'll be fun to see what it looks like inside during the teardown. Before we check the fingerprint scanner, let's talk about the screen. The smaller bezels do make it look futuristic and cool. Each of Samsung's stock wallpapers kind of darken that upper right-hand corner to hide the Cheerio-looking camera. The S10 is a 6.1-inch Infinity O display with HDR10 and a 1440 resolution. I left my lighter in place for about 30 seconds before a white mark started to appear. But then when the heat was removed, the pixels completely recovered and went back to normal. Flame still evaporates the outer oleophobic coating, of course, so don't try this at home. The real reason we're here, though, is to durability test the new ultrasonic fingerprint scanner, the first of its kind. The ultrasonic scanner uses high-frequency sound waves pass through the screen to hit your fingerprint and reflect back down into the sensor, kind of like that echolocation that bats use. Setting up my fingerprint was easy enough. The screen itself doesn't need to illuminate since it's all done with sound waves, and it works super quick every single time, with a cool little ripple animation. But what happens if the front glass becomes scratched or cracked? Will the fingerprint scanner still function? Let's bring over the deeper grooves, level 7 pick, and we'll rough up the glass to mimic a substantial amount of abuse. We can all agree that this phone is much more scratched than could ever happen naturally out in the wild. It's pretty brutal and almost makes me sad inside. But science must continue. Even with the heavy, unrealistic abuse, the fingerprint scanner is able to read the high-frequency sound waves bouncing from my already programmed fingerprint and unlocks the phone every single time with no struggles. Thumbs up for that. It's good to know that normal scratches will never inhibit the fingerprint reader. We'll check and see what happens with cracks in the glass in just a second. First, we gotta try the bin test. With only minor changes to the overall glass sandwich design in the last 4 years, Samsung phones have always been super solid, and this Galaxy S10 is no exception. Whether pressure is applied from the front or the back, there is no flex to the phone, and no glass separation on the back panel or the front screen. No kinks, no cracks, and no damage done to the water resistance of the phone. The Galaxy S10 passes the bin test and is an impressively solid phone. What happens though if there are cracks over the ultrasonic fingerprint scanner? Would cracks be enough to deflect the sound waves and disable the fingerprint scanner? Let's bump things up to a level 8. Beyond scratches and deeper grooves, this level 8 pit creates gouges that only Sapphire can resist, effectively imitating cracks in the glass. The glass directly above the scanner is a mess now, and unfortunately the fingerprint scanning ability is not able to function, completely unable to recognize my fingerprint. The ultrasonic fingerprint scanner is out of order. Yeah, I can draw a pattern and use the less secure Face ID, but the fingerprint scanner is no more. A while ago, MKBHD took sandpaper to scuff up the glass over an optical in-screen fingerprint scanner, and afterward it still functioned just fine. So when comparing the two side by side, my initial impression is that the ultrasonic scanners, like the one in the S10, are more affected by scratches than an optical scanner would be. Either way, technology is pretty cool. If you want a feature-rich, premium smartphone with all the bells and whistles currently available, the S10 is the phone for you. But it's kinda also just another rectangle with marginal improvements over last year's phone. I'm gonna keep using my Galaxy S8 Plus for a little while longer. I don't feel the need to switch just yet. You can always plop a skin on your old phone and pretend it's new, and then take that $1,000 you just saved and fly to Hawaii and back. Who knows, maybe nature is worth visiting. Feel free to spam my Twitter with natural hexagons if you go outside, and use your fingerprint to hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching. I'll see you around.
This is Austin. There's a lot that can be said about the brand new Galaxy S10, but it can be summed up pretty quickly. This is the phone to beat for 2019. After 10 years of Galaxy devices, we have one seriously nice piece of hardware with the S10. Put it side by side with an earlier model, and it is absolutely crazy at how far Samsung has come. Now, you can't talk about this phone without acknowledging its most unique feature, the hole punch display. Yeah, it's definitely there, alright. Now, I recently did a video talking all about the hole punch display versus the notch, which you guys can go check out. But there's no getting around the fact that while this is a pretty much full screen display, it is kind of distracting to look at that hole punch all the time. Now, because of this, there is one key disadvantage to the S10 Plus versus the standard S10 and the S10e. Both of those phones have a single camera up front, which means the hole punch display is much smaller than the double camera on the S10 Plus. Sure, it looks a little bit more distinctive, but you're losing basically double the real estate with that. Now, I've kind of gotten used to it at this point, to be totally honest, but it is a little bit intrusive still, and I think this is one of those things where time will definitely tell whether this is a good idea, or whether we'll look back on the hole punch as something that's even worse than the notch. The screen itself is typical Samsung. Bright, vibrant, and pretty much as good as it gets as far as smartphones go today. What's new this year is that the fingerprint sensor is moved from the back of the phone to the front. Now, it's underneath the display, and generally speaking, it works pretty well. So it's very similar, in fact, to the OnePlus 6T, not only in accuracy, but as well as speed. Now, you can't just put your fingerprint anywhere on the display. There is a fairly small sensor in the middle, but once you get used to it, you can pretty easily unlock the phone without having to tap the screen or do anything. You just set your fingerprint, it will wake up, and you're good to go. The only Galaxy S10 that misses out on this feature is the S10e, which instead has a fingerprint sensor on the side of the phone. Now, personally, I actually don't think this is a huge loss. Even though it is a cool feature to have it underneath the display, it still feels a little bit more like a gimmick than a must-have feature. The rest of the hardware is absolutely top-notch. After all these years, it's weird that Samsung is still the only ones to really pull off the curved front and back glass. Not only does it look nice, but importantly, it gives a very nice feel in the hand. Amazingly, if you look on the bottom of the phone, you will find that there is still a headphone jack. Now, I don't know how much longer this is going to stick around. At this point, it feels like the S10 is one of the very few flagships that still has it. But huge props to Samsung on this one. And to top it all off, Samsung now allows you to remap the Bixby button. This is an incredible, brave new world we live in. If that's not enough, we also still have stereo speakers on board, even though we don't have really kind of any sort of top bezel. There's a tiny little driver up top, which sounds pretty good. There is not a lot to complain about with this hardware, I'll be totally honest with you. Samsung absolutely nailed it this year. Speaking of hardware, something that returns this year is DeX. So Samsung is one of the few companies that really fully takes advantage of the USB-C port. A lot of other phones just use it for charging, but with this, you can kind of turn it into a full desktop. All you do is take a single USB-C cable, and while you could use a DeX dock, what I personally prefer is running it to a USB-C monitor. Not only do you get a full display, but you also get stuff like mouse and keyboard support, and honestly, Android apps have come a long way as far as being able to be used in a Windows sort of fashion. And no, DeX is not the fastest thing in the world. It does feel a little bit stuttery compared to running the apps natively on the phone. But this is absolutely the dream, right? You take your phone, you use it all day, you drop it into a dock, you plug something in, and it turns into essentially a full desktop computer. If only it was just a little bit faster. Don't let that fool you though. This is an absolute performance beast when you're using it as a phone. Here in the US, all models of the Galaxy S10 use the same Snapdragon 855. The main difference is just in the amount of RAM as well as the amount of storage. There are a ton of different SKUs, but pretty much all of them have 8 gigs of RAM, with the exception of the base model of the S10e, which has 6 gigs, as well as the high-end version of the S10 Plus, which has 12. Regardless though, you shouldn't see any major difference between the different phones. It's very nice to see that you're not getting sort of a skimped down version when you go to the lower end models. Performance should be very similar across the board. Speaking of that 855, it is a big step up over the 845 of last year. Now it's still an 8-core processor, but they've done something a little bit different. So you have 4 cores, which are a little bit more on the power efficient side, and you have 3 big cores for heavier tasks. But there's also a single core, which is a higher clock speed, which is especially helpful for single-threaded performance, which, let's be real, is a lot of what you do on your phone every day. That plus the new 7nm process really pays off. Put it side by side with not only last year's model, but as well as the brand new iPhones, and you'll see that while yes, it's not quite as fast as that iPhone XS, it is much closer than Qualcomm and Snapdragon have been in years. Graphics are also an improvement. We're looking at a solid uplift versus last year's model, and again, it is not quite there with the iPhone 812, but it is a lot closer than it used to be. Now, a small note about cooling. While the S10 and the S10e have fairly standard cooling, the S10 Plus actually has a vapor chamber. Now, I don't have those other two phones in to test, but with this guy, it actually does a very good job of staying fairly cool, even when you're under extended gaming loads. I saw it top out at around 40 to 41 degrees Celsius. The Galaxy S10 line is also one of the first phones to support the brand new Wi-Fi 6. Now, this isn't going to be dramatically faster than the previous generation of Wi-Fi, it's maybe 20% or so, but the big difference is that this should be much more reliable in more congested areas, which of course is basically everywhere at this point. Now, I haven't had a ton of time to try with the Wi-Fi 6 router yet. Definitely stay tuned. This actually is something that could be a pretty big deal going forward. Battery life is definitely a strong suit with the S10 Plus, and a big part of that is due to that huge 4100 milliamp hour battery. I've had no problems making it through a full day of use. Now, as you'd expect, the S10 is water resistant and it does support fast wireless charging. What's really cool about this is that it supports reverse wireless charging. Turn on power share, and all you need to do is take another phone or another accessory, and the S10 will begin to charge it via Qi wireless charging. This is a dope feature, especially considering that you have such a big battery on the S10 Plus. It's a legitimately super useful thing to do. Especially if you're a nice friend who wants to top off after the end of the day. You're like, oh, I got 40% left. Here you go. When it comes to cameras, the initial front-facing camera on the Galaxy S10 is all new this year. Now, on the Plus model, you do get a secondary depth sensor, which is nice for portraits, but also means that the little hole punch thing is, well, not so little. So if we take a normal shot, it looks pretty decent, but we also do have the improved portrait mode. Now, the blur effect actually looks pretty decent. It still does have an issue with my glasses, like every other front-facing camera ever, but not bad. So there are some very interesting effects with the portrait. So you can do a sort of like weird zoom, which actually doesn't look that bad. I mean, some of this stuff is really fun. If you have the right kind of shot, you can get a really cool effect. You also have the color pop mode, which makes the background not only blurred, but also black and white, which is very sad. Yeah, you know what? Some of this stuff is actually really cool. Like, I know a lot of times the portrait mode stuff is gimmicky, but the different options here are totally unique and actually do work pretty well. Of course, though, that's not the entire story. On the back of the Galaxy S10 Plus, we have a full 3 cameras. So the main wide-angle camera is essentially unchanged from last year. You still have optical image stabilization, as well as that cool dual-pixel autofocus and the dual apertures. That's not enough pixels for you. On top of that, the telephoto camera is also very similar. It does have OIS. You're really not seeing any kind of major differences on the actual hardware side of things. What's new is a brand new wide-angle camera, which is standard on the S10e, the S10, and the S10 Plus. The only thing that the E really drops is that telephoto camera. So for example, this is what the telephoto looks like, this is the standard shot, and this is the wide angle. You can see that there's a pretty wide range here. Now, I personally find that the wide angle is probably the most useful. Obviously, you're gonna be using the main camera 90% of the time. I always just find that telephoto is usually not that much higher quality than just digitally zooming in. But that wide angle camera actually does work really well. Video is also pretty impressive on the S10. So this is what the wide angle camera looks like, but if we punch into the standard, you can see that we're still getting a lot of range. And we go all the way into the telephoto, as it kind of stutters for a second, you can see you get some very different focal lengths. But the camera goes a lot farther than just that, especially when it comes to video. You're also getting double the record time on the super slow motion. And I gotta say, even though it's not something I would use every day, when you pull it off, it is a very cool effect. Now sure, will the S10 match something like the Pixel 3 as far as raw image quality? Not really, but because you have all of these different modes, the video is so solid. I mean, especially considering that you have that super wide angle lens, I don't think anyone is going to be particularly disappointed with the camera of the Galaxy S10 this year. There is no getting around that the Galaxy S10 is an expensive phone. Now, while the S10e is kind of reasonable at $750, if you want to get the S10 Plus like this model, it's going to start at $1,000. And if you go for the full maxed out 1TB ceramic model, it is $1,600. Realistically though, this is just kind of the world we live in at this point. The $1,000 flagship is here to stay, and beyond price, there's really not a lot I have to complain about with the S10. Now, beyond the S10, and especially this S10 Plus, it really is that good. So of course the question is the Galaxy S10 worth it? Yeah. Simple as that, yeah.
Sounds like everything is all together and it sounds like one. Lighter just makes everything easier.
You could just be at home and have a studio radio ready.
It gives me a sense of comfort.
It really helped me in rap when I wasn't able to get my track sounding how I wanted it to sound.
It gives you loudness and it kind of gives the record more body. Lander just gives you that opportunity to just be my own engine.
You know, I think Linda has changed the landscape of things for sure. You know what I mean?
Man, it's dope, man. Man, it's what the game's been missing.
Galaxy S10 Plus. It's new and sophisticated, and one of the biggest questions is going to be, how does it stack up against the iPhone? So let's find out. I'm also launching a mega Galaxy S10 giveaway with everything Apple Pro. Rules will be in the description below. So, both phones are structurally sound, solid with no flexing, but the iPhone feels comparatively bulky. The thickness is almost identical, but at 208 grams, the iPhone almost feels a little awkward in contrast with the 175 gram S10 Plus. And Samsung's curves are a little more palm flattering, so it fits around the hand. Both phones are IP68 rated against water and dust, but Samsung wins a few points here. It keeps the headphone jack and still offers micro SD card support, up to an extra 500 gigs. If the display is important to you, and let's face it, it probably is, then I think the S10 Plus beats the iPhone in pretty much every category. Its screen is a fraction smaller at 6.4 inches versus 6.5, but it wins in a lot of key areas. It has a screen-to-body ratio of 93.1%, higher than Apple's 84.4, and has an even higher peak brightness of 1200 nits, which, by the way, is one of, if not the brightest display on a phone ever, so even broad daylight is not going to cause a problem. The spin-off of this is that the new S10 phones all support HDR10+, which is kind of like a new standard for contrast, and so even though videos do look fantastic on the iPhone, this is another level. It's also a Quad HD Plus panel, which gives it a pixel density of about 530 over the iPhone's 458. Whether the average person will be able to tell a difference is a different question, but what you will be able to tell is that Samsung has replaced the notch with something I think is a little sleeker, the hole punch camera. Now, it's worth bearing in mind that the iPhone's notch isn't exactly there to look pretty. It contains a whole bunch of sensors that scan your face in 3 dimensions, making it pretty much the most secure way to unlock the phone. It has kind of a ridiculously low 1 in a million chance of failing, compared to Samsung's roughly 50,000. It's kind of personal preference which one you prefer, but just bear in mind that with the iPhone, there's no option for fingerprint unlocking, and with the Samsung, you don't have the option for any kind of 3D face unlock, including iris scanning, which has been dropped for these phones. This is the first time we're seeing an ultrasonic in-display fingerprint scanner though, which means it will be more reliable than most equivalents, and even work when your hands are wet. Cameras. The iPhone XS Max has very recognizable looking images. Because of Apple's implementation of Smart HDR, pictures almost look a little artificial, but consistently good. Samsung's is different. The S10 Plus introduces a triple camera setup, which has a standard wide angle and a telephoto lens, just like the iPhone, but with a third ultra-wide lens. And with a 123-degree field of view, this is one of the widest ultra-wides I've ever used. You can fit a lot into one frame. It's a little early to say anything conclusive about camera quality, but from the time I've spent with it, the image quality and the image processing looks pretty similar to last year's versions. But the live focus portrait mode is noticeably better. Neither phone has a dedicated night mode that you can switch on at will, but the S10 can take long exposure night shots. You just can't decide when. You have to wait for the AI to decide when it thinks it's dark enough. Samsung also mentioned that the S10 is their first phone that can shoot super steady video, but what exactly that means we're going to have to spend more time with it to find out. You've probably noticed by now that the S10 Plus has not 1 but 2 cameras on the front, which theoretically means more reliable portrait selfies. But the iPhone does already do this pretty well with just 1. In fact, the iPhone has the ability to capture high dynamic range better than almost any other selfie camera, and from what I've seen so far, that remains true compared to the S10 Plus as well. But again, need a bit more time with that. Depending on which region you get it in, the S10 Plus is going to be powered by 8 gigs of RAM, and either the Snapdragon 855 or the Exynos 9820. Both powerful chips, but the comparison with Apple isn't exactly one where people reach a consistent agreement on. The benchmarks will tell you one thing, but they're not really built to compare scores between iOS and Android. Essentially, it's close. I've used devices with all these chips, and probably the safest conclusion is just that whether you go for the iPhone or the Samsung, you're getting bleeding edge mobile performance. Samsung has got a vapor chamber inside for extra cooling, but to be honest, in my opinion, the most underrated feature here is support for the next generation of Wi-Fi 6, which is not just faster, but can keep up even in congested areas like stadiums or conferences. As well as the standard S10 Plus, there's also an Ultimate Performance Edition, which will probably also be the Ultimate Expensive Edition, with 12 gigs of RAM and up to 1 terabyte of internal storage. So, you probably know that the iPhone XS Max is running iOS 12.1, and the Galaxy S10 Plus is going to ship with Android 9. You've probably already made up your mind over which operating system you're into. Android is open and customizable, and iOS is very slick but tightly controlled. I do like Samsung's new One UI skin, much cleaner and more intuitive, and the phone comes with a new and improved Bixby Smart Assistant, which will go head-to-head with Apple's Siri. One unambiguous thing worth mentioning is that the iPhone is going to stay up to date for longer. Judging by past history, you'll probably be getting the latest iOS updates for at least 5 years, but more like 2 years if you get the S10. Then again, I imagine people who are spending this much money on a phone are probably going to be upgrading every 2 to 3 years anyway, so not a deal breaker. Battery-wise, it is a massive win for Samsung. Both phones charge wirelessly, but the Samsung can be placed against another phone and start wirelessly charging that one. I'm a little disappointed that they haven't upgraded the charging speeds for years now. The S10 Plus still charges at 15 watts, which is kind of weak compared to phones that now charge with 40 or even 50, but it still wipes the floor with the iPhone, which comes with a 5-watt charger in the box, and takes 3 hours to fill it up, in an age where most phones will fully charge in 1. Even in terms of capacity, the S10 Plus's 4,100 mAh cell is nearly 25% larger than that of this phone, but in real-world usage, the gap probably won't be that large. iPhones make very good use of the battery capacity that they do have. One thing Apple has really started focusing on is audio, and the iPhone XS Max is hard to beat. It uses both the bottom-firing speaker and the earpiece for audio with some of the widest soundstage and separation you can get on a phone. Samsung's is really good too though. You've got a similar dual speaker setup, and it's got Dolby Atmos support, so very cinematic sound experience. Okay, but maybe the most important thing is pricing. The Samsung is also cheaper. The XS Max starts at $1,099, and I'll drop the final Samsung prices in a comment below, but expect it to start at around $900, going up to about $1,400-ish for the fully souped up version, which is still, funnily enough, no more expensive than the 512GB iPhone. So, which phone do you think won? Don't forget to enter the giveaway, and as always, my name is Aaron, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Day in the tech world, it is a big release day or launch day, announcement day. Everybody's talking about the new Samsung device, the Galaxy S10. In front of me right now, I have the S10 Plus with the hole punch, the double hole punch. People talked about it, it was leaked, the rumors showcased it, and now it's real. It's in front of us, and this is our first look at it. So here it is, a gigantic display. Of course, this is the Plus version, and the first thing you notice is how that hole punch kind of vanishes into the background of the default wallpaper. Now I was like, hey, but people want to see the scale of the hole punch. So I was like, let me go into the wallpaper settings here. They blacked it out in every single wallpaper. But anyway, this gives us a better idea of the hole punch setup when we're just inside of the UI. And, you know, I don't know, it kind of fits into the top notification bar. It's the exact same height, which I don't mind. And of course, not having it in the center kind of moves it to a more, a less utilized area of your screen real estate. So this is kind of going to be up to the individual in terms of how you compare this to a notch kind of scenario. But I guess at first glance, aesthetically speaking, you're used to having some noise up in the top corner, because this is typically where this stuff lives. You know, your signal, battery life, and so on. So it does blend a little bit better than the center notch. Form factor wise, it's similar in scale to the current Plus series, the S9 Plus, though the back camera also received some upgrades. As you can see right here, we've got 3 camera units. That means this device has 5 cameras. The S10 Plus is a 5-camera smartphone. That's pretty wild. So that's a 6.4-inch AMOLED display. Now, I've said in the past, I'm generally a fan of the Samsung displays on smartphones. They make so many of them, and they've got these vibrant colors, lots of contrast, very pleasing to a wide audience. This is no exception. At first glance, this looks really nice. I don't know if it's much brighter than the previous version. I've got it maxed out here for the purpose of this video, but it looks good. I think you're going to be satisfied with it. So let's go ahead and launch these cameras. Okay, so this is the front-facing unit, and it also has a wide angle. Now, it's not the widest. Maybe Kirk can pick this up real quick. So this is the wide, and that's the close. Nowhere near the field of view that the Pixel gives you, for example. This one, on the other hand, it gives you a quick bounce out, slightly, you have the ability to probably fit 2 people in the frame, one there, but then on the typical focal range, that's what you're looking at. All right, let's do the selfie test real quick. What do we have? Should we just do a max beauty just for the, all right, max beauty, here we go. We got lips. What do we do to the nose? We shrink it? Or we make it bigger? Oh. Okay, this is on the big side. Are you seeing this, Kirk? In real time? Okay, that's big. We're shrinking it. Eyes? We need to make those bigger. Okay. The chin? What would people want to do? Shrink that? The jawline. Oh. We're sucking in the jawline, folks. And the skin tone. Okay, here we go. This is max beauty. I'm going to try to look as pretty as possible here. This is not me, ladies and gentlemen. That's not me. That's pretty. And they've done a compelling version of it here. It doesn't look cartoony. It looks like plastic surgery. Like that's what it's starting to look like. Actual plastic surgery that you don't have to do. For the price of a new smartphone, you get the old tuck, the old stitch and tuck. I'm gonna get rid of that. I don't know. It's not the best selfie I've ever seen, if I'm being honest. Now, when it comes to some of the post-processing stuff, that can change a little bit. Keep in mind, this is like this is an initial hands-on scenario. So maybe we can pick up a bit more detail, maybe some more contrast in the way that the image is processed. But right now, I've seen selfies I like better. I just noticed a cool animation. Watch the top camera unit when I click back. Did you see that? There's like a little light effect around the hole punch. Boom. Fancy. I do have to say, the feel, I hate it when people say that it feels good in hand. It does though. This one actually, it doesn't feel like a huge phone. It's rather narrow. It's obviously slim. And I kind of like holding it, to be quite honest. I should take you around the device real quick because I just noticed we still have a headphone jack. That's going to be a bonus for a lot of people. I'm glad they did that. You have a big device, you have the room for it. Now you got some extra versatility. You need to plug a standard set of headphones in. The jack is there. I really don't need to tell you. Of course, Type-C connector as well. Quick charge capable. On the rear, it's looking like we have the 3-lens, 3-zoom situation. So the default in the center shows 2 trees. That's representative of the focal range. Of course, we can zoom in further. That's a nice looking image. And then wider, this is a 0.5 zoom, so that's pretty wide. I'm into that. Okay, so that's the wide lens. Standard 1x focal range, and then the zoom. So as you can see there, the AI picked up that it's a face, that it's a portrait and it made various automatic adjustments. Okay, cool. So now we'll just show you all three. Ooh, that's pretty nice. Okay, so that's the zoomed in mode. That kind of turned out well. That's the medium or standard focal range, and then that's the wide. The wide is quite wide. I'm a fan of that, actually. Then it barely even juts out in this case. Like that thing, look at that. That lays pretty flat. I mean, completely flat, really. That's impressive for a camera module housing a 3-camera setup, including something that wide. I'm kind of happy about that. All right, staying in the camera modes, you can see there's also a pro mode, which gives you all kinds of access, ISO, f-stop. You can control autofocus, white balance. I mean, everything you would expect in a pro camera is in there. That's nice to have. I also noticed there is a super slow-mo. It captures 0.4 seconds. Okay, let's give this a shot. Super slow-mo is always fun. Oh man, is it going right now? Holy. That's 0.8 seconds of actual video. Wow, okay, yeah, I mean, that's super slow-mo. Now, I do want to take a picture of something colorful. I just want to see the way this thing deals with colors. Knows that it's a plant. We'll try the close-up. You know what, man? Again, this is initial interpretation, but this rear camera is looking real nice right now. Look at the detail over here. Wow. That's looking like that's going to be a real performer on the rear camera. Another thing I was curious about, specifically with this cutout design when compared to the notch, is like, what's it going to do in video mode? Obviously, people watch a lot of YouTube, a lot of video on their smartphone. So here you can see in the YouTube app what happens during navigation. Fits into the notification bar, but it also looks like the notification bar itself is fatter than it would normally be to accommodate the hole punch setup. So you lose a little bit of screen real estate there. Now, so that's zoomed in on the YouTube video player, and this should give you an idea of how that hole punch is going to look when you have a full screen video playing. Yeah, it can interfere a little bit. And then you're like, that little area around the outside of it, is that really useful to have that? That's not even a millimeter of extra screen real estate that you're barely using. Of course, it looks cool. It seems futuristic, but strictly from a utilitarian standpoint, is that really that useful? I don't know if this is the future of design. It really feels to me like this is a stopgap to the eventual no cutout, no notch situation. I mean, we've of course seen slider situations, motorized camera pop-ups for front-facing cameras. This just happens to be the latest incarnation, but I think a lot of it is kind of just the novelty factor in general. One thing I will say is that this is going to make people feel like they really have a new device. Like that's what that ends up feeling like, is that this is a new thing. This is not something that has existed before. You pull this out of your pocket, you're like, that's not my last phone. It doesn't look anything like it. But as far as the practicality of this particular implementation versus others, I honestly don't think it's a big difference. But then again, I'm a guy who, on notch phones, I turn it off. I just black it out. So I kind of find them all a bit offensive. At least here, they are giving you 2 front camera options. So you're getting 2 lenses. So there's a bit of a payoff, a bit of a trade-off. You get 1 wide angle, 1 standard. So you get some extra equipment in exchange for that cutout. Oh. Most of the sound is still traveling out the bottom. It's a good sounding smartphone. I'm into it. It's a good sounding smartphone. They thought about it. Just so we have a comparison. And let's try that Dolby thing again, see if we did any enhancing for it. Oh yeah, this track you can hear it a little bit. It's in the mid to high range. little more detail, a little more crispness, crispy crunch, Rice Krispies, Krispy Kreme, Honey Crisp, Cocoa Crisp. You know what? This is a nice little package. Okay, this is not going to be cheap though. Holy smokes, this is not going to be a cheap device. Be prepared to get up to that $1,000 range if you think you're an S10 Plus kind of person. Battery information. Oh, there we go. Breaking news. 4,100 milliamp hour battery, at least on the Plus version. That's a big battery. So I think people are going to be happy with that. You got some quick charge. You got the latest Snapdragon. It sounds good, it looks good, it's got a lot more in the camera department than the previous version. It's got a bigger battery, and there's a lot going for it. I'm gonna play with this device. Of course I'm gonna use this device. Of course the SIM card is going to enter this phone, and I'm gonna let you know how it compares to some other stuff that's out there. And I'm also gonna let you know if there's enough value here to justify the cost, because that's the conversation in 2019, and you already know it. But there it is. It's the S10 Plus, and of course you can tell it's wrapped in the beautiful D brand. If you want to know more about that look for the link in the description. There it is, Unbox Therapy. Stay tuned for the next one.
This is Crave. We're new, and we're about to grab the frozen aisle. I have a snowball. Because Crave isn't just meat, it's bacon. Crispy bacon and tender pulled pork. Nice. New Crave frozen meals. Show your mouth a good time.
It all went down. You saw the previous video. You've seen many videos on the new devices from Samsung, S10, S10 Plus. They're out there, and they're kind of interesting, to be honest. But something that struck me just using these things a little more extensively over the course of the day here is how different Samsung software is now via this brand new One UI that they're using. Of course, I have a long history with Samsung skins on top of the Android operating system. What used to be called TouchWiz at one time. I was never a big fan of it. It always felt kind of bolted on, kind of half-baked. This is it's a breath of fresh air. I felt the need to jump back on here. Call me crazy, but I'm starting to think this might actually be the first skin that I want to use, maybe even more than stock. Am I saying this right now? Is this me? I've never said that before. But let me give you a quick rundown, okay? So the best part of this One UI is when you swipe down from the top. So that looks pretty normal. But when you pull down the second time, that's where things get really exciting. You pull down and pull down again, and everything that you would normally have to reach up to access is right here for one-handed use. Now that's kind of nice to have on the S10, but it's even nicer to have on the S10 Plus, which, let's be honest, that's a pretty big phone. They went to the drawing board here and they're like, well, what should it be like for one-handed use? And that's the simplest, best implementation I've ever seen. Secondary swipe to bring everything back down into reach. If you do head into the settings, you'll see it exists even within there. Now, you're probably noticing another thing, which I really like about One UI, which is, of course, this really cool looking dark mode on the right-hand side. So this is the S10 Plus over here. I've already enabled dark mode on there. They're calling it night mode, as you can see right here. And I'm a big fan of these in general. If you're using your device in a dark environment, it's far less obnoxious. You're not getting beamed with nearly as much light. It's just more comfortable to use, and it's covert. Take a look at it. Now, another thing that's happened here is in terms of the icons and whatnot, normally I'm a bit critical because the icons, they're a bit cartoonish, not necessarily my style, but I'm starting to understand that having these larger icons also lends itself to one-handed usage. In this particular case, you don't need to be as precise, and you can just go ahead and reach more of it. The fingerprint scanner and the face unlock. Samsung is doing something very special with the fingerprint scanner in these two devices. These guys are using ultrasonic. They're actually using sound waves to judge the distance between ridges on your fingerprint. It's kind of amazing when you first hear it. Now, in practice, it doesn't work all that differently from any other in-display fingerprint scanner. I mean, the speed I was trying to check, is it faster, slower than the optical-based ones? I think it's about the same. But the advantage of this particular technology is it's tougher to fool because it does actually look for blood flow. That's like the superhero villain scenario. They chop your finger off, get access, destroy the world, and so on. Not gonna happen on this particular device, Kirk. Okay, you can rest easy. All right, if they chop your finger off, it's no good to them. There's no blood flow, ultrasonic. Also, supposedly, this is gonna function better with a fingerprint that might be a little bit dirty or wet, whatever. I don't know what you're involved in, all right? I'm not telling you how to live your life or what you're doing with your fingertips, all right? I stay out of that department. But if you're in a certain kind of business, maybe this is better. If your hands are dirty, if your fingertips, it works. It supposedly works better. It does feel a bit slower when you're coming straight from here. You see what I mean with the black screen? But if you do hit the switch here, you get a better sense for how fast it is. I'd say it's comparable to the optical scanners, but it does seem like slightly more robust tech. Now let's go ahead and register the face unlock as well. I'd like to show you guys how that works. So it does give you a warning on the facial recognition. It tells you that this is not completely secure. It's not the most secure form of authentication, but I do want to show you the setup process here on the regular S10 so you see what you're in for. It's very fast. One thing that kind of bugs me, it's a two-step thing similar to the iPhone. I'll show you what I mean here, okay? Hit the button, it sees you, phone is unlocked, and then you swipe up. On the OnePlus device, for example, which just has a, strictly has a photo-based face unlock, you just hit the switch, boom, it unlocks immediately. Now, some people may like that, some people maybe not. Maybe it's easier to hack. One thing I do like about this implementation, if you look up here, you look closely at the front-facing camera cutout, there's that cool animation that pops up again, letting you know it was activated, it worked, and then you go ahead and unlock. Otherwise, if it doesn't see you, you hit it with the thumbprint, and you're in. It's usable, it works, and you have the face unlock option, which is also baked in there. Another cool thing in here, they have added the wireless power share. I think this is it's a fun feature. Wireless power share. Tap that on. Place this device against any other device that has cheat compatibility, and check this out, okay? So we're gonna line them up. Kurt, keep an eye up there on the icon. Okay, ready? I'm gonna go ahead and initiate it, and just like that, you get the sound notification as well as the visual notification. You're now charging up this device from this device. Now there is another glaring user interface / hardware aspect to this device that I know a lot of people are going to have questions about. That is, of course, the dedicated Bixby button. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, I know, we talked about in the past. It strikes fear into tech fans around the globe. I know I have nightmares about the Bixby button and what it really wants to do to me. Anyhow, apparently, does this make sense in this context? Not really. Apparently, in a software update, that button is going to become completely configurable by you. It will be able to launch any application that you like. Imagine that, a dedicated button that you get to configure. I think it's a good move on Samsung's behalf, and I'm starting to see a lot of things that I kind of like about this device. It's crazy. I can't believe I'm saying it. But to be honest, I played with the One UI situation just for a moment. You throw on the dark mode, you get the one-handed functionality, it's quick, you can go in there and actually turn down animations now. Yeah, Samsung's letting you do that. This is the same company that gave you TouchWiz. What are we doing here? Are we looking to them now for software iteration, for software improvement? It's kind of amazing, and I think it's going to be one of the differentiating factors with this particular device. As I said in the last video, I'm going to use this a little bit more, but I felt the need to just do a little highlight here on the One UI. Some promising things happening with this device outside of strictly the hardware. The software seems to have taken a step in the right direction, and that's a good thing for tech fans around the world. Also, once the Bixby thing happens, you could be done with those nightmares. You can stop. Even Otis is having Bixby nightmares. They're gonna finally let us remap the Bixby button. It can launch any app that we want. This button here, look. This device here got a little bit of hype. I reached out. I was like, I gotta check this thing out for myself because it's not what companies are releasing, and it's from a brand that you haven't heard from in a while. Every other smartphone maker is scaling up. And here you have Palm, one of the original players in the smartphone game, saying something completely different in the form of this tiny little device. They're implying that you should have this as a companion to your actual smartphone. Pre-installed 4G SIM. So this is how this thing is going to work. On Verizon specifically, you're able to map your current SIM to this device as well. So you could hypothetically leave the house and say, today is a low-tech, a low-impact day. I'm going to take the Palm device instead of my main device. The whole proposition here is that there are circumstances, situations in your life where you shouldn't be so distracted, I guess, by your phone, or maybe you just don't want to carry a big phone. The whole thing seems a bit crazy, but that's precisely why I'm making a video and checking it out. That is tiny. Oh my goodness gracious. Look at that, Jack. You see that? That's a Palm phone. Palm made a Palm phone. I can't be the first one to have said this. Everyone must be. This is so light. It's like a tiny little iPhone. Look at it. What? I kind of like it. It's cute. Oh my. Why do I like it? I don't know. Should I like it? I'm not sure. Peel off. Very low-key Palm logo in the center. Gold around the camera and gold around the ridge. It's not going to win any awards for screen-to-body ratio. I don't know if you guys can see. Even without the screen turned on, you can see it's got a pretty big forehead and chin. You got to remember, I've been around since pre-smartphone days, since regular cell phone days, and back then, the smaller your phone was, the cooler you were. From the giant Zach Morris, Saved by the Bell, Fresh Prince, I think Will Smith had one of those the big boys, but then of course phones became computers and everything got all messy. You're still gonna have another phone. This is the I'm taking a vacation phone, or this is the I'm gonna actually pay attention at my kid's soccer game phone. I see you parents out there. Right, get it together. Type-C, charge cable, tiny little power brick. Not in comparison to the device. Will, explain this to me. So the phone is gonna cost you $350, and then you're gonna attach it to your pre-existing plan, which will share your phone number, your data, and so on. Non-removable SIM, that's really interesting. So it's a single button, and the number of times that you tap it will dictate the action that takes place. It is Android, but it is a unique kind of miniaturized skin that's going on here. Steph Curry is endorsing the phone, okay? So it has to be good. 3-point shots. Look what happened to the team recently since he's been injured. You've been following, Jack. The Raptors beat the Warriors without Steph Curry. Durant almost changed that fact. Oh, what do you have, 50 points or whatever? Okay, I was there. I mean, I wasn't there, but I watched it. But with this guy, it would have been a different story. If you want to know about phones, that's your guy right there. Steph Curry, okay? Life mode turns airplane mode on every time the screen is turned off. Unless you're on a call streaming music or using GPS. When the screen is back on, then the device becomes connected. With life mode, you're in control of what gets your attention, so you will never miss out on life's most important moments. I'm looking at you, soccer parents, spreadsheets, email. Woo! I'm sorry. Yeah? Go. Go. Yeah? Yeah. No, I'm just at the game. No, I don't know. No, they're just kids. Yeah, go on. Buy. Sell. Alright, so that's what it looks like booted up. And you can see it is a custom UI, custom interface here. And it's kind of been tuned for this tiny little display. So you have your apps in the center here. From the top, you get your quick settings, including this little palm tree here, life mode. You can set certain apps to bypass life mode. Unbox. So you can type. I mean, it works. When you're trying to type with thumbs, I mean, it ain't gonna happen. I don't think you're gonna be texting a whole ton on this, and I don't think that's really the point. Oh man, that is so small. Oh, volume is strictly digital. Oh, I'd say it's louder than I expected it to be. I should try out the camera. Okay. We haven't seen our favorite special guest in a while. We keep getting stuck with Willie Doo. Her name was Betty from way back in old school unbox therapy days. She used to try headphones on for us. Actually, I think she's looking okay. Not so bad. It has auto HDR as well, so it's doing some smart stuff. It's not terrible. Okay. You can still snap photos on it. Will, get over here. Come here for a second, Will.
What do I think? I think it's cool. I wouldn't use it though, because I already have a small phone.
Wow, not compared to this.
No.
Do a little typing right there.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
There's voice though. Unbox therapy.
Box therapy.
UFC 231. Oh.
You know what? I would use voice all the time on a phone like this. But, so you hate this?
I didn't say that. I said that I wouldn't use it, but I can see a use case.
How much did Apple pay you to say that? As a tech fan, you're kind of like, okay, cool. No, not even that.
I would think, what's the use?
Yelling.
What's the use?
Yelling. Look, if this is what they're saying, okay? Live in the moment. Palm celebrates the freedom and choice to be both connected and present. They're telling you you're not present, Will. Life.
Right.
Life. Live your life, Will.
Would you use this? I mean...
Like, I would do a challenge, for example. I'd be like, let me try and use that for a week or something like that. The customer, just the average person out there, it would be a hard pitch. What does it sell for? $350. I can't recommend that. Maybe this is like a nicotine patch.
Yeah, it's like a subpar solution.
It's like temporarily we're gonna make the experience a little less comfy and slowly train you to look less often towards your device.
Yeah.
To like satisfy or fill every moment. I was at the doctor's office earlier today. I'm looking around. Everybody. You know? They can't see. They're right here. And they're tapping away. I'm there. I'm doing the same. Like, but then I'll catch myself. I'll put it away. So it's at least addressing that. People are texting and driving. They're crashing into each other. You know, you get a gift and you don't really need it. And you're like, you know what? It's the thought that counts. This product is the thought that counts.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be hard. You're trying to sell a nicotine patch to a bunch of smokers. And it ain't no cigarette. That's a cigarette. That's what they want. Buy or don't buy?
I wouldn't buy it. I don't think it's a good idea to buy it.
I'm gonna say don't buy it. I'm gonna say get better at disciplining yourself and your actions and your behavior.
Or get an Apple Watch. Same thing.
See what he just did again? This guy's unbelievable. People are gonna start wondering in the comments, well, who do you really work for?
Yeah, exactly.
Does this map show the peninsula trip?
You won't find that on a map. I'll take you there. Take this left. If you listen real hard, you can hear the whales. Hear that?
Our Subaru Outback lets us see the world. Sometimes in ways we never imagined.
I've got some pretty interesting accessories here that all have something in common. They look like one thing, but actually do something else as well. They're versatile. A wireless charging mouse pad. I don't even know, what is that name? Gate pad? Gale pad? What is it? What is the name of this? Gaze pad. This, I think, is a smart idea. I mean, if it works how it says, or what it looks like, then I think it's a good idea. It's a wireless smartphone charger over on here on the side of your mouse pad, which you might already have one. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. I gotta check it out. Anyhow, this is a notebook. It looks like a standard notebook, but then it's also got built into it a wireless charger, power bank, and planner. There's a wireless charger in the notebook. I've never seen this before. Maybe it's cool, maybe it's not. We are also going to find out. It also supports fast charging and the Qi standard. This last one, possibly the strangest of all, is from 12 South, and this is the Power Pick wireless charger. So this will charge your smartphone in something that looks like a standard picture frame. In fact, it is a standard 5x7 picture frame made of New Zealand pine. So important that they put it on the front of the box. I don't know how it compares to other pine, nonetheless. So it's covert. It just looks like a regular picture frame until you drop the phone in and boom, you're charging without a dock that only serves one purpose. Is it a gimmick? A bit? I suppose they've all got that in common. All right, let's start with this Gaze Pad Pro. That's a nice little surface. Okay, that's not real leather, but it's decent fake leather. How about that? Wireless charging pad. As far as mouse pads go, it's actually Type-C. That's a nice little bonus. So you know what? This is pretty nice. It's a nice little accessory. You got the mouse pad. You're mousing around. You probably have this lined up over here. Keyboard here. You're mousing around. Now, where would you put your phone? It makes a lot of sense. You will put it right there. You're going to pick up a wireless charge or not. Bingo! Drop it on. Bingo. This is smart, guys. It's kind of simple in concept, but why not? Why shouldn't something like this exist? Mousing, charging. Message comes through, that's where it should be. You guys know I love wireless charging. Got wireless chargers all over the place. I just feel like wherever they are, increases convenience and the likelihood that you'll do it. So far, so good. Product number 1, I'm into it. We're 1 for 1. Okay, next up. Test mode. It's a 3-in-1 versatile gadget. They've really gone out of their way to let you know where your wireless charging. Holy smokes. What do? You go to class? What do? You study? Is that you? Good for you. Quite the future you got there. Not making any promises here. Anyway, maybe you need one of these to go to class. This is just me and my planner. In reality, you're charging your Inspector gadget. What is this? You can put whatever pages you want. They could be blank, it could be a standard notebook, but look at the back area here. This is pretty wild. So they have these little cutouts for all your cables. USB cable. I presume this is going to charge up the internal power bank on here. You have micro USB, lightning, micro USB to Type-C adapter. Now there's also a battery indicator. This looks like it's dead right now. We're going battery bank to battery bank. Let's give it a shot anyway. Yeah, right away. That's a really quick engagement. Right away. You're eating lunch, you're conversing, you drop it on, people are impressed. What is your notebook doing to your phone right now? It's charging. That guy, he's pretty quick. I've never seen something like that. It's definitely a conversation starter. Oh, hey, you need some juice as well? Oh, yeah, no problem. You take it from me. It's no big deal. Anytime. Here's my phone number. What? When I say conversation starter, you need to listen to your Uncle Lou on this one. Who doesn't need a little juice? You're the notebook guy. Like, let me go find the notebook guy. Or they're just like, that guy's such a loser with the weird notebook. I mean, it could go either way. But I doubt it, because when someone needs juice, they need it. They don't care where it's coming from. 8,000 milliamp hours. Okay, not bad. What do you think? Willie do? Hilly who? Come on over here for a minute. We're going to talk about this, Will. You were a guy on campus. You were the big man on campus.
I wouldn't say that, but...
Would you have, don't lie to me, would you have carried this thing around?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, I would use this as a sketchbook.
You're sketching, you're charging, you're sharing some juice.
Yeah, I think it's a portable size. It's pretty lightweight, especially with the battery pack inside.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Oh, maybe you do need to be precise, though.
Oh.
Oh, no, because we're not plugged in.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Another dog hair. Otis, unbelievable. It's going to be a hard-hitting question here. This is just 2020, Charlie Rose. You'd have this or that.
I would probably take this.
Yeah. The way they did it, I don't know.
It's really simple.
Yeah. Okay, I agree with you on that. All right, well, you can get out of here now. You did your part. Round of applause for the college student. Last up, we have, when the box showed up, I was just like, that's pretty weird. This is a picture frame. It's also a wireless charger. Not a combination that I ever would have imagined. It's probably like a wireless charging toilet at this point. Place the phone against the picture to begin charging. There we go. Get it? Got it? Good. This is the picture frame. Remember, New Zealand pine. That's a 5x7 picture. Remove these clips, you pop this out, you put whatever picture it is that you want in there. I kind of like what they've done with the cable management here. A little cutout there, so you run the cable down. You don't have to see it very much. Cool. So we're gonna plug this in. So here goes nothing. We drop it on, charging. You know what? I have picture frames kind of like this around my house. So what do they do for me right now? A couple of memories? When a guy needs some juice, you know, what you have to do in that case, Jack, is you have to print off one of your own photos. I mean, this could even be a family photo. You could even match the photo to the background on your phone so it all blends together if you're being real stylish. You're not gonna know. It's gonna look like a regular picture frame, and it truly could fool people until they drop the phone on and see how it functions. So I don't know where I would stack it against the other two gadgets that we've demoed here, which one I would use the most. I probably would still use the mouse pad most, because if you're at a desk, you're always looking for some juice or a place to drop your phone. The notebook is for a specific type of person that's on the go and already carrying a notebook to begin with. And then this one here is the most